Well, our hiatus is over. 2-week hiatus is done. We are back for.
See, now I'm taller than you when I'm sitting in this chair.
Oh, isn't that something?
Yeah, the only time I am. Yeah, we took a little hiatus for a couple of reasons we won't get into, but mostly because the NHL took a little bit of a hiatus for something that we're going to talk about pretty much
All
right
show.
off the bat. All show.
First off, we want to take the time to thank our supporters.
Yes.
The Refocused Radio Network with Shemaya Reed, who puts our show on their network every week after we're done. Great exposure for us. There's also plenty of other great shows and opportunities out there on that website, including our good buddy Rudy Campos Jr.'s Sweep the League, where he talks about all the sports besides hockey, so baseball, football, basketball, college, pro, and gets a good scoop on those. And Dad and I take care of the hockey portion of the sports. There's also Sweep Unplugged that he has. That's more of a life talk show, not necessarily sports related, just things that are going on in the world. And then also, like Dad always says, we have our show also available on Spreaker.com every week after we record the day after. Also here on Facebook, when we do our lives, they're saved in our profiles, both of us, because we share the videos. Let's see. TikTok, Dad does still do TikToks, I'm assuming, for Oilers. I actually can't do TikTok because with the ban, I deleted it, and once it was banned, you can't re-download TikTok. So I'm probably going to be off the TikTok world for a while until they lift all that. But he does his Oilers post games there, and then we do our stuff here all the way through till Game 7 of the Cup Final, or whatever, last game of the Cup Final.
Last game of the Stanley Cup Final.
And so that's what we do here. So thank you to our support system. We appreciate that. So getting into today, because we don't have too much time, a bit late to the studio due to some traffic, so we have about a 30-minute show. But today's is, I don't want to say short and sweet, but it's about one big thing. You know, we didn't really talk about the last week for our team, but I don't think that's necessary today because this is much more important. For us, at least before it started, we were looking forward to the Four Nations face-off. And so for those who don't know what that is, I'll go ahead and explain it if you haven't already heard about it, because it's been pretty popular this week. Four Nations face-off was determined by the NHL last season to be the replacement for All-Star Weekend. So instead of having these guys go out to the All-Star game, not really give a full effort and just kind of, do trick shots and stuff, or be kind of just half, I'm just going to say half-assing it, they decided to do the Four Nations face-off, and includes the countries of Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the USA, which for the most part are the most populated countries of players in the NHL, excluding, like Russia, for example. There's a lot of stuff going on there politically that doesn't allow Russia to participate in these kind of events. So the NHL decided to have the Four Nations face-off consist of the best players from those four countries in the NHL, so that we have best-on-best action, which hasn't been seen in the NHL since the 2016 World Cup of Hockey, which Canada won that tournament. But since then, there's been no NHL involvement in international tournaments. So this was going to be the opportunity to see the best of the best, best of Finland, best of Sweden, best of Canada, best of the United States. And up to this point, it has not disappointed one bit. No. These games have been very, very exciting. Honestly, did not know what to expect when this tournament started. As far as, what was it going to be like? Was it going to be a good flow? Was it going to be entertaining? You didn't know until it started. And the schedule, the way it was written, there's one day where there were two games. The tournament started, and first night you had Canada-Sweden, then the next night you had US-Finland, then you had a 2-day break, and then there was a doubleheader. Well, not really. One game at noon, one game at 7. That day was Finland-Sweden, US-Canada, and then finally yesterday another doubleheader, if you want to call it, 12 p.m., 7 p.m., Canada-Finland, US-Sweden. After the first set of games, technically the first 4 games that were played, it switched venues from Montreal to Boston, which consists of the final 3 games of the tournament. The last day of round-robin play, and then the championship, which is set for Thursday, the 20th. So, very exciting tournament. Started off U.S. I'm sorry, you're not really doing much of the talking,
That's
but
okay. That's okay. He's
starting
better at it anyway.
starting off with U.S. and Sweden. Again,
No, U.S. and Finland.
no, Sweden. Sweden was the first game.
Canada.
Oh, sorry, Canada and Sweden. Thank you.
Canada,
We both. I screwed up both.
And it was U.S. Finland.
Canada and Sweden, game 1. So again, until that puck is dropped, nobody knows what's going to be going on here in this tournament, like how it's going to be. And right off the bat, Canada scores, gets a power play, scores with probably the best power play unit on paper that's ever existed in the history of the sport. Very back and forth game. Canada goes up 2-0, then Sweden scores to make it 2-1. Canada scores again, 3-1. Sweden ties the game, actually heads to overtime, where Mitch Marner wins the game in overtime, about over halfway through the overtime. And the overtime in the Four Nations, instead of the traditional NHL 5-minute OT, they're doing 10-minute OTs for the round robin, which is very exciting because the longer the OT goes, the more entertainment there is. And should there be OT in the championship on Thursday, they're doing NHL playoff rules. So 5-on-5, 20-minute overtime periods until there's a winner. And then U.S.-Finland. U.S. beats the crap out of Finland 6-1. Close game until it wasn't. Very, very quickly within the first 3 or 4 minutes, U.S. scored 3 times, and it was just game over.
Finland got the first goal of the game.
Yeah,
and
they
then
did.
The U.S. got the rest.
The next 6. Then we head to the next night of action, and the most anticipated day, probably of the whole tournament, for the matchups that were at this point decided. 2 great rivalries between first Finland and Sweden, which is a big European rivalry in the hockey world. Everybody was looking forward to that game and how chippy it was going to get. And that game did not disappoint. Finland wins this game 4-3 in overtime. So another overtime game, but it was just a great atmosphere. Now, we'll talk about this next game, and then the other 2 are kind of more, I don't want to say brush-over games, but leading towards the final. The one that was the most anticipated out of them all for this tournament, the U.S. and Canada, for many different reasons. U.S. and Canada have the best international hockey programs in the world. That's been no doubter for a long time. Canada and the U.S. are 1 and 2 for the most part in all the international tournaments, and it was a no-brainer. This is going to be such a great game. Now you have the best players from the U.S. and best players from Canada facing off. A lot of these guys haven't played each other in an international stage before. What made it even more of a boiling pot, if you want to call it, was all the political tension that has been going on between the U.S. and Canada at this point. The past few weeks, sporting events, U.S. and Canada have pretty much been booing each other's anthems at sporting events. It's been nonstop, and surprise, surprise, it happened again in Montreal. Canadian fans booed the American anthem, which I'll touch on this for like 1 minute. I don't agree with that. That's not the reasoning that it's theirs for any kind of political, whatever, regardless of presidency, whatever. It's for the veterans for each country that have made that country what it is. But unfortunately, the fans just can't get by that and just insist on booing on the anthem. Then they sing "Oh Canada" at the Bell Center, and that was just an insane thing. The crowd takes over the song, sings the whole song, and then
you got to understand that it's in Montreal. They sing half of it in French, half of it in English. That's the way it's always been, and it was pretty stirring hearing that from the crowd.
Yeah, and so they sing that anthem loud and proud, and Prime Minister Trudeau's at the game. The anthem singer barely sang any of the song on the microphone because the crowd was singing it so loud. Game starts off, and what has probably been one of the more popular events on the internet the past few days. 3 fights between these 2 squads in the first 9 seconds of the game. Right off the puck drop, Matt Tkachuk and Brandon Hagel drop the gloves 2 seconds in, fight, go to the box. Drop the puck again, and now it's Brady Tkachuk and Sam Bennett's turn to fight each other. And that fight gets over. Tkachuk skates to the box, daps up his brother, who's in the penalty box with him at this point. Crowd going in a frenzy, obviously. Game hasn't really been started. There's been 3 seconds of gameplay, and there's 2 fights. Then the puck is dropped once again, and U.S. takes it in the zone, shoots it on goal, saved. Binnington stopped it. And another fight. Was Parayko and J.T. Miller that time. Off of just a net front scrum, they were just pushing and shoving and finally dropped the gloves and fought. And after that, things finally, I don't want to say cooled down, but cooled down a little bit. The game was actually starting to be played. Played out a lot differently overall than I thought it was going to. Canada scores the first goal. Your buddy McJesus, beautiful backhand goal on Hellebuck, who has been seemed to be such an impossible goalie to solve. But then the U.S. comes back late in the first, bad goal for Bennington to give up. No angle. My buddy Jake Gensel gets a 5-hole from no angle goal and ties the game. Then later on, in the second period, on a 2-on-1 turnover from Sid, actually, Dylan Larkin scores over the blocker, under the blocker, over the pad, 2-1 U.S., and then you go to the third, and U.S. just locks it down defensively, gets an empty net from Jake Gensel again, and it's 3-1. The U.S. wins. So, I mean, big game for them at this point now. With that win, the United States clinches their berth in the championship game, and with still one game remaining. So now that leads to yesterday's games. The first one actually being the most important of the day, Canada and Finland, and then followed by U.S.-Sweden. Now, with the Canada-Finland game, the winner of this game, if it were to be in regulation, automatically advanced to the final because Sweden have lost to both of these teams already in extra time. It didn't matter if, if Finland won, they beat Sweden, vice versa. Canada beat Sweden too. However, if should have gone overtime, Sweden would have had a chance to beat Canada or U.S. in regulation and advance to the championship if it would have gone to extra time, but it didn't. Canada, guns a-blazing right off the bat, 3-0 lead in the first period. Finland scores to make it, Canada scored to make it 4-0 in the second, and then Finland gets one in the third period at the beginning, and then two quick ones actually at the end of the third, which was scary.
That was a 6-on-5.
But still, I mean,
scary.
You got a
Very
minute
scary.
and 20 seconds left in the game, and Finland's cut the game to 4-3. Being honestly, not even trying to be rude about it, but being probably the worst team in the tournament because they were so shorthanded. But then empty net goal, Sid got that one off. Honestly, a nice play in the center ice by a nice hit on Granlund there, and he took the puck, shot it down, scored, and Canada wins. Now, with that being said, touch briefly, U.S. loses to Sweden 2-1 in regulation time.
Again, weren't happy.
No.
They were shorthanded.
They were shorthanded by a lot of guys, but great effort for Sweden. They played a great game, and that means that in this tournament, pretty cool that each team won a game at least, which was cool. So good for the fans that watched all those teams that they got to see that. So now, before we kind of get to more of the topic of the whole tournament, the championship game, highly touted rematch between Canada and the United States, this time in Boston. How's that going to play out? What's going to happen? Anthem's going to be booed. Crowd's going to be raucous. We don't know. It's going to be an intense atmosphere. You know that. Both teams learned a little bit about each other during that game the other night, and it's going to be a bloodbath. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more fights, lots of hits. Notice U.S. really was just locking it down defensively, but I feel like Canada maybe will be able to stretch the game out a little bit offensively because they definitely have that advantage there, but it's going to come down to the goaltending. Can Bennington be sharp one more time, or if they're going to yank him and put somebody else in? I don't know. You know Hellebuck's starting for the United States.
Because Otter played the other night against
Sweden. But it's going to be an intense game. I'm excited. I mean, the whole sports world is excited about this event. People know they're going to watch this game. It's a primetime game Thursday night in Boston on ESPN and ABC. Obviously Sportsnet in Canada. But the thing I want to talk about regarding this tournament, in my opinion, or not my opinion, in general, the NHL and the sport of hockey this last week just not only sent a message, but made themselves, in my opinion, the best sports league in the world this weekend. Because up to this point, no other league has done something like the NHL just did. Putting together the Four Nations Face-Off, an unprecedented event that happened during All-Star break, featuring the best players in the NHL facing off for pride, for country. For any sports athlete, no matter what sport you play, there's no greater pride than competing for your country. And you can tell the effort's there when you're competing for your country. Yeah. And it was. All these games were spirited, hard-fought battles, and caught so many people watching these games, so many athletes, former athletes, sports personnel from other sports, commenting, watching these games. like watching mainly U.S. and Canada. U.S. and Canada, by the way, as of today, is the most watched non-Stanley Cup final game in America since 2014.
Yeah.
That one game. And you know it's going to be even more on Thursday because these two teams are playing each other again.
And for the championship.
Yep. Caught attention of the sports world, of the world in general. One of the more popular topics on the internet is the Four Nations face-off. Now, you type in four anywhere and it's Four Nations face-off right away. So many people sharing posts about this. Big controversy too this weekend with the NBA All-Star Weekend going on at the same time, where that to a lot of people was a major flop. That it was not a good event. It was horrible. It was boring, and people were more satisfied watching the Four Nations face-off. While I was actually getting ready to come here, I read a post on Instagram, and it was actually about apparently Kevin Durant on his Twitter page was commenting to people's comments about how the NBA is like soft, their players are soft. He set up these events, and these guys just want to be traded around for money, and they want to just be put on stacked teams. And he was telling those people, just go watch hockey then if you just want to see a fight or want to see passion. I'm like, well, they do. Mm-hmm. And today on ESPN, PK Subban was on Get Up, so one of their segments on one of their morning sports shows. And he's saying how that's what the fans want to see is passion. And these guys try and care. And you watch the Four Nations, and you're telling me you watch those fights in that game, the hits that are being laid through this tournament, that these guys don't care. They care. They care, and they don't care if they're getting it. They care. They want to win. And that's been different. That's making the NHL different than any other sport. So kudos to the NHL. Kudos to everybody involved, players, staff, league, leagues, league higher-ups for the NHL offices. They did such a great job orchestrating this, and it's just been exciting to watch, and, good for the fans that got to see this stuff in person, too.
And it makes it interesting because next year it's the Olympics at this time of the year.
Yep.
It'll be the Olympics, so then you're going to have not just the four nations that were involved in this tournament, but you're going to have more nations. Germany's going to be playing. I'm not sure about Russia, if they're going to have anybody. Probably not. But you're going to have, some other countries involved that weren't involved. But I totally agree with what Carson was saying. It doesn't matter what the outcome, if it's on Thursday, if it's the United States winning or if it's Canada winning. The NHL, hockey in general, won over this last 10 days. And to be able to watch a meaningful game in an all-star type atmosphere break.
Because it really is all-star. I mean, that's the definition of all-star.
Yeah.
Come on, you've got, McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby on the same line, on the same grouping out on the ice. On the other side of the ice, you have Matthews, Gensel, Kachuk brothers.
Yeah.
I know he wasn't playing, but Quinn Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. You got these guys on the same sheet of ice in one game. And it's actually a meaningful hockey game.
And they made it, they stretched out the normal time for the All-Star game instead of a week or less than a week.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
So that they can play a 3-game round-robin tournament and then get into the finals. It was the best idea that the NHL has ever come up with. And then I didn't watch the NBA. I saw highlights. I saw the debacle that happened with Victor Wembanyama and
Chris Paul
in the
skills challenge,
the skills thing. And it was just that's the difference between the NBA looking for money and the NHL, as Carson said, just passionate players who love playing for country, and who this is okay. This is in the middle of an NHL season. Towards the end,
these
of
guys
the
still
season,
got it. Some of these guys are gonna. I mean, there's gonna be more than a couple of these guys on any of these sheets of ice that are going to be competing for the Stanley Cup in June.
Yeah, and so you're going at it as if it's an NHL game, and there's going to be some guys that have coming out like Theodore, Shea Theodore. Sorry, Shea Theodore is going to come out of this. He's hurt.
Yeah.
For the Vegas Golden Knights, so he's going to be out for a while before he's able to play again. So these guys go out there and they're hitting hard. You said,
it's not. They're not. They're trying.
They're not powder puffing this.
No.
They're hitting hard. So my hat's off to. I don't particularly like Gary Bettman.
But they did a great
job. I
job.
don't like the hierarchy of the NHL very much. But man, they hit this one on the head. Next year will be the Olympics. I'm hoping that in 2027 they'll go back to the four nations.
And then in 2028, the World Cup of Hockey is coming back. So All-Star break again will be for World Cup of Hockey, which will feature more nations, more players, more teams. It'll be great. This is such a great move for the NHL, and I don't ever want to see an All-Star game ever again. This is by far the most entertaining All-Star week, and if you want to call it, in my time of being a fan, by recollection, too, probably the best All-Star week event since my lifetime in general, where this means something, and it's for pride. That's what it's all about. It's for pride. It's not for money. These guys just want to, honestly, that's what makes the sport so great, is that these guys just want to kill the crap out of each other.
And you listen to everybody that they've interviewed from any of the teams, the four teams that were involved, and all they said is with so much pride. I wanted to play in these games. I wanted to play for this team.
Like, was it Kachuk? One of the Kachuk boys, I think Brady said, like, I've been waiting 9 years for this game.
Yeah.
And you know what? In comparison as well to the NBA, how many guys in this tournament are banged up, injured? The Kachucks, both injured. Matthew didn't play the other day because of an injury. He's going to be playing in the championship game. Even though it makes me sad to say this, Sidney Crosby, leading the tournament in points from from Pittsburgh. He's playing, and I'm looking at him sometimes, and I feel like he's not very healthy, but he's playing. And they don't care that they're injured. They want to win. And you look at yesterday in the NBA All-Star game. Comes down to the last minute, and LeBron says, "I'm not going to play."
Yeah.
Because whatever, my knee's sore, my ankle's sore.
So before the U.S.-Sweden game yesterday, a couple of the Oilers who were on Team Sweden, Victor Arvidsson and Mattias Ekholm, were not going to play because it's a meaningless game for Sweden, and didn't want to. They weren't going to get in anyway. And I saw Mattias Ekholm said something today. He got a call at about 4:45 last night saying, we got some guys who are sick. He got in the cab and went to the arena and made it in enough time to play when he was just going to be going back to Edmonton to get ready for the rest of the season. This is the commitment of these players to play for their country.
Even the guys I saw today when I was on Twitter, obviously for Sweden, Carlson and Raquel from us were in the tournament. And the tournament's done, and they're going to be flying back and literally hopping into practice either tomorrow or on Thursday. Right back into practice.
Right back into it.
And, it's not like on their days where they're not playing, they're not practicing. They are practicing. They're practicing. And the NHL just hit a grand slam, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded on this one, because this has been such an entertaining tournament. You've got so many people wanting to watch these games, and being invested. And for once, for the first time in a long, long time, hockey is number one right now. Yep. That is... You go on SportsCenter, ESPN. That's what they're showing. Even today, when I was on my phone, actually on ESPN, I opened at my break at work, and they're having live SportsCenter all day, and the cover page on that is the Four Nations. Is one of the fights.
So now you look at the rest of the season. They'll start here on Saturday. Look at the rest of the NHL. Now there's going to be more eyes.
There's going to be more eyes on the NHL. There's going to be more people going to games because they need to see this. They need to see it. And I hate to say it because I feel like it's going to be true, but I feel like almost when the NHL comes back, it's going to feel like a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah,
because but it's going to be great to have the sport back. And again, these teams now going for the ultimate prize in the game, which is the Stanley Cup. But yeah, unbelievable. Hats off to the NHL. Great job. I'm excited for the finale on Thursday. Obviously, we're both going for Canada, but I'm just looking for a good game, and it's going to be. I mean, the way these two teams played the other night, no doubt. Great tournament. We have about a few minutes left before.
I want to say hi to Joy, Jason, and Beth who are watching us on Facebook. The only thing I want to reach on, and I don't know if we even want to go there because it's been such a positive show. But I had one of my questions was, who's been the players that you've been disappointed in Canada and the United States?
Oh, Austin Matthews for the United States. I haven't noticed him the whole time. Yep. He has 1 point in this whole tournament, and I haven't noticed him a lick. Canada, other than his goal, Mark Stone, I feel like when he's out there, nothing happens. I half the time don't even know that he's there. Yeah, I haven't heard his name other than when he scored that goal. So
I have to go for Team Canada, Binghamton. I've been disappointed in his play. He's let in 4 or 5 soft goals. And on the side of the United States, I agree with you. Austin Matthews, here's a guy who was leading goal scorer in the league, and he was the poster boy of Team USA when it should have been one of the Kachuk
And you know
boys.
what? I have to say, another guy that I think I've really just seen like what he can do on the U.S. that maybe goes unnoticed is Larkin.
Yeah, Barry
Dylan Larkin.
That's his dad. Dylan Larkin.
He's looked really good.
Yeah.
Even though I don't really care for him sometimes, the Kachuk boys,
Yeah.
they're noticeable every time they're out there.
Well, the Kachuk boys have made this tournament.
Yeah.
They're
the center of the
They're
tournament.
the center of the tournament. And I like Brady. I'm not
Because
really
of
a fan
Calgary.
of Matthew. But the Kachuk boys made this
They're good
USA
for. They're
team.
good for.
They're the face of the Team USA.
They're great for the sport. They're very great for the sport. But yeah, I've been honestly the most disappointing of the whole tournament's probably been Matthews. He just hasn't done a lick. Some other guys that have done great. Granlund from Finland, he did awesome this tournament. He had 3 goals, including the OT winner against Sweden.
What's his name from Sweden? He got the star of the game last night.
Bratt?
Yeah, Bratt. He played very
He's a
well.
great player, and even EK played really well this tournament.
Nylander didn't do very much.
No, he didn't. You know what? Hats off again. NHL did a great job. I'm ready for Thursday.
I think it's a 7 o'clock Central.
Yeah, it's
time
a
start.
primetime game, so the world's going to be tuning into this one. One thing we did put on Facebook we were going to talk about was this weekend for me because I'm going to be traveling back to Pittsburgh again, probably for the last time this season, to watch them play 2 games again. Washington Saturday, the Rangers on Sunday. I'm very excited. Never seen them play a divisional.
I mean, to see Ovi play, maybe.
Yes, which is cool. I mean, over time, the Capitals are a rival team, but we're watching history. If he scores a goal, he's getting 1 goal closer. But I'm excited for the games. Obviously, I'm hoping Sid will get to play, but depending what his injury is or if he's injured at all, then it's just everybody's kind of overreacting. I don't know. But I'm going to be excited nonetheless. Games for them obviously are important at this point. To see them get a couple wins would be nice. Again, I'm 0 for 6 live this year, so I'm trying to change that.
You got to get that.
I'm trying to change that. But 2 great games, 2 national games too, which is cool. I don't think. Well, I've been to 1 national game in Dallas before, but it's different atmosphere when you're at a national game. More people are watching it. But I'm excited. Again, great chase. Can't beat that. I leave Friday, come back Monday, so hopefully coming back with 4 points in the pocket, but nonetheless, going to be fun.
We'll watch you on Facebook with posts and stuff like that from the games. This weekend, the Oilers get back at it. They too play a doubleheader. Two noon games.
I think y'all's games are they both TV games for y'all too?
Saturday.
I know Saturday.
Saturday is against Philly at noon, and then Sunday is
The
against
Washington one is the predecessor to ours because y'all play the noon slot on TNT and we play the 2:30.
Yeah. So next week we'll get back to our normal format, talking about. I had down here for if we were going to talk about our team's trade deadline coming up. Skinner and Skinner may be on the way out.
I agree.
We'll talk about that next week because you got some lanes to go take care of here and do a little bowling. So again, check us out, RefocusRadioNetwork.com, the Best Boys YouTube channel. We still love you to subscribe on that. You can find that on the Refocus Radio Network.
Make sure you're cheering for Canada. Well, on Thursday, just kidding. A lot of people here are not going to be cheering.
Game.
Yeah, just cheer for a great game. This is going to be a great hockey game.
It's going to be a great hockey game. And then we get back at it next Tuesday, right around 5:45, 6 o'clock. It all depends on traffic here in San Antonio for him to get here. So again, we're so looking forward to Thursday and the 4 nations face-off wrap-up between Canada and the United States. It's going to be a great game. And then Carson's off to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, you're going to do a Primanti Brothers sandwich again?
I'll probably have to, huh?
Yeah, I guess you're going to have to. Anyways, if you don't know Primanti Brothers, look it up. It's
great.
Absolutely amazing.
It's awesome.
So we're going to wrap things up for tonight. So in the meantime and in between time, everybody have a great hockey night.